You hold in your hand a soggy, unremarkable pile of soy pulp, okara, the ghost of homemade soy milk or tofu. Most people scrape it into the bin without a second thought, yet this humble byproduct represents one of the cleverest, most overlooked climate solutions hiding in plain sight. I want you to imagine that same pulp transformed in just 36 hours into a dense, nutty, protein-rich cake that sizzles in a pan and tastes faintly of mushrooms and toasted almonds. This is zero-waste Okara Tempeh, a fermentation technique so simple and ancient that it feels almost like a quiet rebellion against the industrial food machine. To understand its power, you need to grasp what Okara really is. When soybeans are ground and strained to make milk or tofu, the insoluble fibre, residual protein, and micronutrients are left behind as wet, pale crumbs. That crumb contains around 5 to 7% protein by weight, plus calcium, iron, and gut-friendly fibre. On a global scale, roughly 1.2 billion kilograms of okara are generated annually, mostly from soy milk and tofu factories. The majority is discarded as animal feed, plowed into fields, or sent straight to landfill, where it decomposes anaerobically and releases methane, a greenhouse gas many times more potent than carbon dioxide. If we could intercept even a fraction of that waste stream and convert it directly into a delicious, shelf-stable human food, we would simultaneously cut landfill emissions, reduce pressure on animal agriculture, and give communities an ultra-affordable protein source that requires zero extra farmland. That is precisely what tempeh fermentation achieves. Tempeh was born centuries ago in Indonesia, where cooks discovered that certain filamentous fungi could bind cooked soybeans into a firm, edible cake. The workhorse behind this magic is Rhizopus oligosporus, a mood that grows as a cottony white mycelium, knitting the substrate together while breaking down proteins and complex carbohydrates into more digestible forms. Traditionally, the substrate is whole soybeans, but Okara works splendidly because its high surface area and steady moisture content provide an ideal canvas for the fungus. When you steam fresh okara, you pasteurize it and drive off any unwanted microbes, leaving a clean, slightly warm bed ready for inoculation. The moment you sprinkle a fine powder of tempeh starter, typically a mixture of Rhizopus spores and a starchy carrier such as rice flour, you are seeding a microscopic workforce that will, over the next day and a half, transform the bland pulp into something remarkably rich and meaty. The science behind this transformation is both elegant and deeply practical. Rhizopus oligosporus sends out thread-like hyphae that penetrate the particles of okara, secreting enzymes like proteases and lipases. These enzymes clip proteins into shorter peptides and amino acids, making them easier for your body to absorb, while generating the savory umami notes we associate with aged cheese or brown mushrooms. At the same time, the mycelium consumes some of the carbohydrates, reducing the flatulence causing oligosaccharides that often trouble people when they eat unfermented soy. Fermentation even produces small amounts of natural antimicrobials that protect the cake from spoilage bacteria, so the finished tempeh stays fresh longer than the raw ingredients would. The best part is that you can watch this process happen with nothing more than a clear plastic bag and a warm corner of your kitchen. To start, you squeeze your fresh okara until it holds the texture of damp sawdust. Moist but not dripping, because excess water encourages slimy bacterial growth. Steam it in a colander over boiling water for about 30 minutes, stirring occasionally to ensure every crumb reaches a temperature that kills competing microorganisms. Then spread it out on a clean tray and let it cool until it feels just slightly warm to the touch, around 35 degrees Celsius. If it is too hot, the spores will die. Too cold, and the mycelium will be sluggish. Sprinkle about half a gram of tempeh starter per 100 grams of okara, mixing thoroughly with a sanitized spoon. Then pack the inoculated okara loosely into a perforated zip-top bag or a shallow container lined with a banana leaf. The perforations are crucial because Rhizopus is an aerobic fungus. It needs a gentle flow of oxygen to respire and build hyphae without drowning in its own metabolic carbon dioxide. Flatten the okara to a thickness of about 2 centimeters so that heat can escape. If the layer is too thick, the center may overheat as fungal metabolism kicks in, a phenomenon called heat kill that turns the core brown and unappetizing.
Place the bag in an incubator or simply in an oven with only the pilot light on, aiming for a steady 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. In a warm climate, a cupboard near a water heater may be enough. Within 12 hours, you will feel a faint warmth radiating from the bag, and by 18 to 20 hours, the surface will develop tiny white flecks like a delicate frosting. Over the next 16 hours, that frosting solidifies into a dense, furry mat that binds the entire slab into a single cohesive piece. The smell should be nutty, yeasty, and faintly sweet. Any sharp ammonia or putrid notes mean contamination has occurred, and you should discard the batch safely. When the slab is fully bound and firm, you can remove it from the bag and either cook it immediately or refrigerate it for up to 5 days. Now comes the moment you transform that snowy slab into a golden, savory centerpiece. Slice the tempeh into strips or planks. Because Okara Tempeh has a finer texture than soybean tempeh, it absorbs marinades like a sponge, so you can play with bold flavors. A simple mixture of tamari, a dash of smoked paprika, a little garlic, and a drizzle of toasted sesame oil gives you a rich, deep glaze. Let the slices soak for at least 15 minutes while you heat a heavy skillet over medium-high heat. Add a thin film of oil with a high smoke point, such as rice bran or avocado oil, and lay the slices in a single layer. Sizzle them gently, resisting the urge to move them too soon, until the underside crisps to a deep mahogany, then flip and repeat. The edges will become crunchy while the interior remains moist and slightly chewy. Stack them on a plate with pickled vegetables, fold them into a warm tortilla with fresh coriander, or serve them over a grain bowl with a bright citrus dressing. In every bite, you taste the evidence that you turned a waste product into a luxury. The nutritional payoff is far from trivial. 100 grams of Okara Tempeh delivers about 19 grams of complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids, alongside 5 grams of fibre and a generous hit of iron, magnesium, and B vitamins. Because the fermentation process partially breaks down phytic acid, the minerals are more bioavailable than in unfermented Okara. Let us take a fun, trendy math break to see just how much impact your home tempeh habit could have. Suppose your household drinks homemade soy milk twice a week, leaving you with 300 grams of wet Okara each session. That is 600 grams a week. If you convert that entire stream to tempeh, you will harvest roughly 250 grams of finished tempeh weekly because Okara loses some moisture during steaming and incubation. Now, compare that with chicken, the go-to protein for gym enthusiasts and dinner tables alike. Producing 100 grams of chicken meat generates about 1.2 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent when you account for feed, land use, transport, and processing. The life cycle footprint of Okara Tempeh is less than a third of that, around 0.3 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per 100 grams. Because the soybeans were already grown, the Okara is a rescued byproduct, and the fermentation requires only a tiny energy input. So each week, by eating your quarter kilo of tempeh instead of chicken, you avoid roughly 2.25 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. Over a month, that is 9 kilograms. The same as driving a typical petrol car about 37 kilometers or charging your smartphone over 1,000 times. Now, let us scale the numbers with a trendy, funny, but deeply practical puzzle. Imagine your cool, slightly irritating housemate who thrives on chicken breast and protein shakes. They consume 200 grams of chicken daily, convinced that only animal flesh builds muscle. You, on the other hand, eat 150 grams of Okara Tempeh per day, providing almost 29 grams of protein without the colossal carbon backpack. After a month of parallel living, by how many kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent have you personally undercut the chicken path? And how far could you drive a fuel-efficient car emitting 120 grams of CO2 per kilometre with that safe carbon budget? Let us chew the numbers. Daily chicken emissions from your housemate.
0.2 kilograms times 1.2 kilos CO2 egg per 100 grams equals 2.4 kilograms CO2 egg. Daily tempeh emissions for you, 0.15 kilograms times 0.3 kilos CO2 egg per 100 grams equals 0.45 kilograms. Difference per day is 1.95 kilograms. Multiply by 30 days gives 58.5 kilograms of CO2 egg saved in a month. Divide that by the car's emission rate of 0.12 kilograms per kilometre and you get 487.5 kilometers. That is roughly the distance from Paris to Amsterdam or from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. Just by fermenting your soy pulp instead of binning it and shunning the industrial chicken system. The answer is both absurdly funny and deeply empowering because it is real, measurable, and repeatable in any kitchen on Earth, and it highlights a radical truth. The most groundbreaking environmental technology is often not a solar panel or an electric car, but a microscopic fungus that has been doing its quiet work for millennia, waiting for us to invite it back into our daily lives. Beyond the personal math, there is a wider cultural shift baked into this practice. In a world where food waste accounts for roughly 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions, valorizing a byproduct like okara directly addresses the root cause of that statistic. Every kilogram of okara you rescue from decay prevents around 0.25 kilograms of methane from forming in the anaerobic belly of a land. Right now, in your kitchen, you are holding a tool that can pull carbon from the sky, heal depleted soils, and feed your family for pennies. And it's something you usually throw away. We're not just making soup, we're building a tiny, delicious carbon sink. Every onion skin, carrot top, celery leaf, and herb stem you toss into a pot instead of the trash can set off a chain reaction that ends with richer soil, lower methane emissions, and food that tastes like resourcefulness. It starts with a simple shift in how you see your scraps. Place a large, sealable container in your freezer. Over the course of a week, fill it with clean vegetable cast-offs. The papery outsides of onions and garlic, carrot peels, the ribs of kale, fennel fronds, leek greens, mushroom stems, parsley stalks, even the cores of tomatoes. Avoid anything waxed, moldy, or dominated by acrid brassicas if you want a delicate flavor. A little broccoli stem is fine. A whole bag will announce itself loudly. No salt, no oil. You're building a blank canvas, a liquid memory of the vegetables you've already enjoyed. When the container is full, tip the frozen scraps into your largest pot. Cover them with cold water, just enough to float everything by an inch. Bring the pot to a gentle boil, then immediately reduce the heat to the lowest possible simmer. You want a still surface with a rare bubble, not a rolling violence. Cook uncovered for 45 to 60 minutes. The liquid will turn a translucent amber or a pale greenish gold. Do not stir. Let the scraps quietly give up their minerals, their fragile sugars, their subtle umami notes. Your kitchen will smell like the earth after rain and the faint sweetness of root vegetables. After the time has passed, place a fine mesh sieve over a second pot or a heat-proof bowl. Pour the broth through, pressing gently on the solids with the back of a ladle to release the last precious drops. What you have now is a pure, salt-free vegetable stock that can be used immediately, refrigerated for up to 5 days, or frozen for months. Use it to cook rice, quinoa, lentils, or as the foundation of any soup. The flavor is a whisper of the garden, waiting for you to layer in garlic, ginger, herbs, or a squeeze of lemon when you turn it into a meal. Now we come to the part that transforms this from a thrifty kitchen practice into a quiet act of planetary care. The strained solids, that humble handful of spent peels and tops, are not garbage. They are pre-digested organic matter, softened and sterilized by the simmer, and the underground world goes wild for them. You have 3 brilliant options. If you keep an outdoor compost pile, toss them in. Because they've been cooked, they break down significantly faster, feeding thermophilic bacteria that supercharge the whole heap. If you maintain a worm bin, red wigglers will devour the salt-free vegetable mash and reward you with castings that are 5 times richer in plant-available nitrogen than ordinary soil. Or you can do the simplest, most ancient thing, trench composting. In a garden bed, a planter, or even a large pot, dig a small hole, bury the spent solids, cover them with a few inches of soil, and water gently. Within 2 weeks, the earth will have consumed the material completely. In its place will be a pocket of dark, crumbly fertility, teeming with microbes that will feed your next planting, whether it is a tomato seedling, a row of lettuce, or a handful of wildflowers. This process closes a loop that modern life has broken.
When organic matter decomposes without oxygen in a landfill, it produces methane, a greenhouse gas with more than 80 times the warming power of carbon dioxide over a 20-year span. By